So I've had a few people asking about kind of little DIY jobs on the truck, and there's a few folks out there that seem to enjoy them. This is what I'm up to. I've fitted some daylight running LED. So this is what they look like. I went for a 9 LED light, fits just under my headlight there. You know, the washer does obscure a couple of the LEDs, but predominantly they give off a sort of bluish tinge of a light, and like I say, they're daylight running. So turn the ignition on. As soon as you start the vehicle, the little LED, the little relay unit that runs the daylight running LEDs knows that the battery's being charged, and what I've done is I've just rigged it in, just tucked it in there. So like I say, the relay came with 3 wires coming out of it. One wire went to the positive and negative. It's got an inline fuse, as you can see, and I've literally taped it in place. 2 other wires that came out of the relay, 1 to each LED. Now it did have a really funky system whereby you could wire it into the headlights, and it would reduce the power to the LED by 30% when the headlights were on, you know, and that sounds like a good idea. All you got to do is kind of tee into one of the wires of the headlight, which is pretty straightforward to do. The reason I didn't go for that is because historically the headlights on a Land Rover are not the greatest. You know, they're pretty dull. This vehicle's 20 years old, so you know, they're not the brightest things in the world. So I kind of thought an extra 30% of light would probably come in handy for very little drain, if any, on the battery. So I didn't use that facility, but it's part of the kit. And if you've got a newer car, you might want to just tee into one of the headlight live feed wires, which on this truck are blue, and as soon as you turn the headlights on, the LED. I've just literally kind of come from the LED up the side of the bodywork, underneath this piece of trim, all the way over to this side, back to the relay, and from the relay back onto the battery. Really straightforward little kit. Like I say, total cost about £20. So I decided that that would be a nice little upgrade for the headlights that are not the greatest in the world on this particular truck. And so this is it. Switch the vehicle off. 25 seconds after you switch the vehicle off, your LED running light should go off as well. There's no switch on the dash. There's no manual ability to turn these things on and off. You know, they're just direct wired. They know when the vehicle's running and they come on. They know when the vehicle's not running and they switch off. Always the way, isn't it? 25 seconds seems like forever now. There you go, so off they go. Doing a little bit of work on the Land Rover the other day, and I noticed this little fixing was broke. Now you can buy a new complete headlight unit, which is about £40, or you can just buy one of these, which is about £2. Get a little clip, a couple of screws. What I've decided to do is, while I'm at it, I'm going to replace all 3 of them. Because I think I replaced that one a little while ago actually, but this was the one that broke. They get a little bit brittle in the winter, you know, so it goes down to below freezing overnight. You come out, drive over a bump, something is quite brittle and just snaps off. So these little things are £2. But that's the difference between your headlights kind of, you know, working properly and being all over the place, like I say. Or you can put it in the garage. They'll sell you a brand new headlight, you know, and that'll be £40 odd plus VAT plus whatever it costs to fit it. So little job, simple enough, do it yourself. Today's project really is that I've bought a light bar, 20-inch light bar that I'm going to put onto the front of the truck, and it's a combination of floods and spots. So on the edges of the left and right are floods, and the centre are spots. So that's going to need kind of testing, you know, overnight. Make sure I get the light in the right place, and I'll also confirm the pattern of the fog lights that I'm going to leave on, although they're wired into the main beam of the truck. So there's going to be a lot of lights on it, very simply. The 20-inch LED light bar I'm rigging up to the dual battery, so there's no drain on the vehicle itself, and there's a lot of things that I'm rigging up to the dual battery, so the fridge, the light bar, auxiliary power for the back of the truck, things like that. But the reality is that there is very little actual demand coming off of the dual battery. So the £13,500 winch is wired into the dual battery. But of course, these things are, you know, rarely if ever used individually, and they would probably be used maybe one at a time, you know. So you'll be using the winch. When you finish using the winch, you can plug your freezer back in or turn your freezer back on, you know, stuff like that. So I can't see a situation where I'll be running all of the things that are running off the dual battery at the same time. It's highly unlikely any of them will be running at all most of the time. The main battery of the vehicle I don't really want to mess around with, you know, because it's got to start the vehicle, it's got to run the lights when you're actually driving at night, and all the rest of it, you know, the internal heater, internal lights, signals, blah 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 blah, you know. So I don't really want to mess around with the main primary battery of the vehicle. I just really want to kind of leave that as it is. But I have wired in the LEDs purely because they're a minimal drain, you know. It would be like leaving an interior light on, something like that. So there's my wiring loom that I've bought. It wasn't a lot of money, in truth. It was about £12, something like that. So, but the wiring loom predominantly revolves around a relay. Then 3 wires that come out of the relay. One of them is the positive and negative, and that's going to go straight on the dual battery. You've got a switch that you've got to run the wiring to for the dashboard, and then you've got another wire, another plug, that is the plug that actually plugs into the light. So really straightforward, you know, no cutting, splicing wires, no interfering with the electrics that are already in the vehicle, so to speak. This wiring loom is very, very generous. You know, so it may be the case that once you've run it and you've got all the wires where they're going to go, you may then sort of snip straight through it, shorten it by, you know, a few inches or a few feet, and then solder it together, like I say, shrink wrap it and waterproof the outer again. But that's the wiring kit. Like I say, it's all there, it's all completely complete. What I'm going to do now is just wire it up to the dual battery, switch it on and see if it works before I go to the palaver of putting it in the vehicle, only to find out it doesn't work. So I'm going to do that now for you. So this is really as complicated as these things are to wire up. All I've done is I put the positive and the negative onto the battery. There's the little relay. Comes with an inline fuse, and this particular fuse I think is a 30 amp fuse, which just means that all the wiring is rated to 30 amps. And then you've got 2 other wires. So here I've got a little switch that I've got to run through the vehicle and onto the dash, and this wire is the wire that goes to your lamp. Like I say, you know, the wiring looms are really generous. So what the kit came with is it came with the wiring loom, but it also came with the plug and about sort of 10 inches of wire that you then just wire into your lamps as normal. You know, so you've got a nice kind of waterproof connection. And again, you know, I'm going to go over that with some black masking tape just to give it a little bit extra. So that's, you know, that's your wiring loom straight onto your battery. This is your on-off switch, and you literally, once you've decided where this is going to go on the dash, you literally kind of turn it on, and that's your on and off. So there we are, people. That's a 120 watt light bar combination of floods and spots, and it really was a pretty straightforward little job fitting it, purchasing this wiring loom with all the fuses and everything you could possibly need. Now all I've got to do is decide where I'm going to run the wiring. I might decide to kind of shorten it a bit, and then sort of tuck it away nice and tidily within the vehicle. So this is where I've decided to fit my relay. I've just drilled a little tiny pilot hole, got a self-tapping screw. That's where my relay's going to go. Might need a washer on it. I've also got this little bit of welding to do. Like I say, just going to give these bolts a little kiss with an angle grinder so I don't get a spot weld on there. Same with these ones, little spot weld on there. And once it's all set up and the beam and all the rest of it's at the right angle, I'm going to put one on the end there. And hopefully that'll just make it a little bit more difficult for anyone to just unbolt and steal if you know, if I leave the vehicle anywhere. But I'll share making the bag that's going to go over the light with you. It's literally just going to have a elastic and maybe a draw cord on it, and it will just sort of cover up what it is. But there is quite a lot of light suddenly on the front of the truck, and there is possibly an occasion where I'm going to be maybe winching myself out of trouble, and I would quite like to have the floodlight on. You know, but that doesn't mean to say that I have to have the vehicle headlights on at the same time, or that I would have these kind of vehicle main beam lights on as well. You know, so all about options. That's today's little job, fitting a LED light bar. It's been really straightforward. Fitted the LED running lights a couple of days ago, but that's a big step forward for me and my little truck. So that's the daylight running LEDs plus side lights. That's the headlights. That's the main beam. And that's the main beam with the LED light bar that we fitted today. Massive difference. I'm also preparing to take on a bit of welding. You know, in the footwells of the old truck, there's a little bit of rust. You know, I've got places where the floor has rusted through, so I'm going to be taking an angle grinder to those, getting rid of the rust, seeing what I've actually got. But I know that it's a job that's got to be done, and it's quite substantial, so I'll be chopping out the rot, welding in new panels, just tacking them in, and then taking my time to run fairly tidy beads and try and make it watertight. Then I'll have to seam seal it. Then I'll be using some sort of rust prevention paint on it before it gets a final kind of top coat of green. But I'm actually thinking about leaving the carpet in the truck over this kind of gearbox housing, but not having carpet on the floor in the vehicle, because all that happens in these old trucks is that the water gathers underneath the carpet and underneath the soundproofing and insulation, and that's where it sits, and the floors are renowned for kind of rusting through. So bear in mind, it's you know, my personal kind of runabout and a bit of a toy. You know, I'm considering not putting the soundproofing and the carpets back at all, so just have a very nice steel painted floor. You know, so that's something that's in the wind and going to be the next job. But really short. As always, any comments, love to hear them. Back soon.